Hello, hello. I'm Casey.
And I'm Fallon.
And this is
Render the Darkness.
Ooh. Okay, today we are going to be bringing you your first case out of Arizona.
Arizona.
We're going to be discussing the fugitive Robert William Fisher. Before we do that, the fun fact for the episode is that Genshin Impact is the most expensive game to ever be developed, costing a whopping $900 million to make.
Damn.
This game came out in 2022, and it's a RPG or role-playing game. It was also nominated for the best mobile device game ever created.
Nice. That's a pretty good game.
I had never heard of it, but you clearly had.
Yes.
Maybe a game I need to check out. Looking into this fun fact to verify it or whatever, it looked pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Looked like a pretty good game. Before we jump into the case, I want to say ahead of time that this case isn't very long. And I know there was like an infinite amount of cases in Arizona that I could have picked. But I wanted to do this one because I think that justice needs to be served here, and the only chance of that happening is if the spotlight is kept on it as much as possible. So I truly hope that someone out there that is maybe watching or listening to this case recognizes the person involved, whose age-progressed pictures I will be using as the cover photo for this case. As well as attaching the link for it in the case notes, and I hope that there's somebody out there who is able to help. That being said, let's get into it.
Alrighty.
Robert William Fisher was born on April 13th, 1961 in Brooklyn, New York. His father's name is William Fisher, and his mother's name is Jan Howell. He was one of 3 children, him and 2 girls. When he was 15 years old, his parents would get divorced, and Robert and the girls would go live with William in Arizona. Once settled there, the children were enrolled in Saharo High School in Tucson, Arizona, where he graduated in 1979. According to the people involved in his life at the time, relatives and fellow classmates would all say that Robert was really angry and really struggling over the divorce. But most of his anger, for whatever reason, seemed to be geared and targeted towards his mother, who he blamed for the divorce.
Oh, okay.
According to later accounts, even into adulthood, this anger never went away. If anything, it intensified and really started to play a role in his perception of his own relationships. Robert genuinely believed that but for his parents' divorce, his own life might have turned out differently. Somehow it might have been better.
Okay.
Later in life, Robert would enlist in the United States Navy. He had dreams of becoming a Navy SEAL, but from what I read and understand, he would never accomplish that dream because he wouldn't quite meet the requirements to qualify to be a SEAL. And after the Navy, he worked as a firefighter in California, but ended up hurting his back pretty bad, which forced him to move back to Arizona.
Oh, no. So one of the reasons do you think, like, he didn't qualify for a SEAL is maybe because, like, you have to hold your breath, like, really long time to be one of them, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I read why he didn't qualify. I didn't put it in here. I just didn't think it was pertinent, but you can find the reason why he didn't online. I'm pretty sure it's on one of the pages to one of the links I am going to attach to the case notes for references.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to know that information, I'm pretty sure if you just follow those links I'm going to have attached, you probably can find it.
Okay.
Because I did when I researched it. I just can't remember, and I didn't put it in the case.
Gotcha.
Once he was back in Arizona, he would embark on a career in the medical field. He had several different positions before settling into a job as a surgical technician at the Scottsdale, Arizona Mayo Clinic.
Nice.
Robert would get married to Mary Jean Cooper in 1987. I read that they actually met in high school and were high school sweethearts, but I'm not 1,000% on the validity of that information. But it was out there, so I included it just in case.
Okay.
Because it wasn't in all of the
Sorry.
It wasn't in all of the research that I followed, but it was in some. So, the couple would go on to have 2 children. Brittany Jean Fisher, born April 27th, 1988, and Robert William Bobby Fisher Jr., born September 21st, 1990. When it came to his personal life, Robert wasn't anything as he seemed. In outward appearance, he went above and beyond to portray the image of a devoted family man who was dedicated to his wife and his children as well as his faith. However, things were not as they appeared in the Fisher household. There are many accounts of Robert's demeanor and behavior towards his wife and kids, and it was said that he was an extreme control freak, basically angry all the time, and pretty much took his frustrations out on his wife and his kids.
That's never good.
Reports by Mary's family and neighbors reported that Robert was very harsh and aggressive towards Mary, Brittany, and Robert Jr. He had complete control of the money, and it was said that in the later years of their marriage, especially, Mary and Robert fought regularly about money and their sex life.
Oh, okay.
He also harvested a lot of anger towards the children. I read that he was especially ashamed of Robert Jr. because he wasn't interested in the things that Robert perceived a boy should be. He wanted Robert Jr. to want to go fishing and hunting, but Robert Jr. just wasn't interested in those things.
It's understandable. Not every boy is going to be interested in doing the outdoorsy kind of stuff.
Exactly right. I mean, they've multiple genetics going around in there, and, they're not going to be, they don't come out pre-programmed in this picture perfect. You're supposed to love your kids and accept them for who they are no matter what.
Right.
That's what you're supposed to do, in my opinion.
Mine as well.
Lost where I was at. Oh, sorry. Mary's mother would go on to say that Robert kept his distance from the rest of the family from fear that if he got close to them, they would leave.
Oh.
In 1990, so he had some serious
abandonment
issues, yeah. In 1998, Fisher's behavior became especially erratic. The friends he used to go on hunting trips with started becoming especially concerned. They recalled an experience when they were hunting with Robert, and on the trip, I don't know if he killed it or if someone in the group killed it, but someone in the group had killed an elk, and afterwards, Robert began rubbing the blood on his face.
Ew.
He also had a run-in with the law around that same time due to Robert shooting a stray dog.
Oh.
He claimed he shot it because it attacked his dog, but I also read that he had been complaining about the dog for days before it supposedly attacked his dog.
Okay.
So there's some question, again, as to the validity of his reason for why he shot the dog.
Right, okay.
This is the same time frame where friends of the family would report Robert and Mary's marriage was in a really bad spot, and so was Robert's mental health. They reported Robert was making comments that indicated he was thinking about unaliving himself. He had also drifted away from the church quite a bit by this point, which was causing even more issues in the marriage. At one point, Robert decided to put his focus on fixing their problems and sought out marriage counseling from the pastor at the church the family attended.
Well, that's good.
This seemed to bring them back. It seemed to bring him back to his faith slightly, and for a little while, it seemed to put things at least at a stable place for the couple. However, in late 2000, the problems between the couple really escalated when Robert had had an affair with a prostitute, which caused him to develop a urinary tract infection, causing him to become ill for several days.
Oh, no.
At this point, Mary and Robert, as you could imagine, seemed to be fighting constantly. Neighbors reported hearing them fight so loudly that they could hear the words of the arguments they were having in their home clearly through the walls of the neighbors' homes.
Dang, that's pretty loud.
Now, granted, I did look at the area where they lived in, and I'm not saying that it wasn't loud. It was clearly loud, but I will say that they did live in kind of a neighborhood where the houses were pretty much right next to each other.
Okay.
There wasn't a great amount of distance in the houses. By 2001, Mary had begun telling people and Robert that she was going to divorce Robert. Robert had told a coworker about the trauma he had gone through as a result of his own parents' divorce and told the coworker that, quote, he could not live without his family, end quote.
Well, I mean, he probably should have thought of that before he went and got with a prostitute.
Yeah, it seems like he had a lot of emotional issues, emotional and psychological issues, like just from the jump, from childhood. Fast forward to the night of the incident, or technically the night before, the police were aware of what happened in the house, and the morning that the incident that brought the situation to their attention. So we're going to talk about the night before the incident, and we're going to talk about the day of the incident.
Okay.
Both of those dates technically are incidents. The cops just didn't know it was an incident until the second day.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You'll understand it in a second. I know that was really confusing. I worded it weird. I don't know why. On April 9th, 2001, the neighbors reported hearing Robert and Mary arguing, but this time it was much more intense than their already intense fights. But after a couple of hours, the neighbors would report that the house just fell completely silent. So everyone who could hear the fighting had just assumed that the couple must have gone to bed. 10 hours later, there would be an explosion and the house would burst into flames.
Oh, no.
Once police and firefighters arrived at the house, they began attempting to put out the fire and doing their best to contain it to prevent it from getting to any of the neighbors' houses. Once the fire was subdued enough that the police could enter the home, they weren't prepared for what they would find inside. They would discover 3 bodies, that of Mary, Brittany, and Robert Jr.
Oh, no.
It would be determined that the cause of death for the 3 victims was not the explosion nor the fire, but rather their throats had all been slit.
Oh.
In addition to her throat being slit, Mary had also been shot in the back of her head.
Oh, gosh.
All 3 were found still laying in their beds, suggesting they were asleep when the murders took place.
Oh, my gosh. And poor babies. Well, poor everybody, but golly.
Yeah, it's terrible. It will never understand it. I will never, ever, ever understand people harming children. Like, I just will never get it. Upon further inspection, it was determined that the only things missing from the home were Robert, Mary's Toyota 4Runner, a gun, and the family dog. He was a blue heeler mix named Blue. The last physical sighting of Robert by police was the camera footage they were able to obtain from an ATM that clearly showed Fisher making a withdrawal of $280. And the timestamp on the footage was 10:43 p.m. The question then became, did he come back after the murders to blow the house up in an attempt to destroy evidence? It would be discovered that he must have rigged something up to cause the explosion to happen several hours after the murder so he could get a head start on the police.
Okay.
The murders were determined to have happened between 9:30 p.m. and 10:15 p.m. on April 9th, 2001. The explosion didn't happen until 8:42 a.m. on the 10th, so the following morning. The firefighters and police discovered that the gas line that was connected to the house's furnace had been pulled out, and there had been a candle that had been lit and left burning. It's believed that the reason it took so long for the explosion to actually happen is because that's how long it took for the gas to slowly leak into the house and reach the flame of the candle.
Okay.
After completion of investigation of the crime scene, Robert was listed as the main and only person of interest in the case on April 14th, 2001. The only physical evidence ever found of Robert, or the last place he could for sure be tracked back to, was found on April 20th, 2001, when police discovered Mary's Toyota 4Runner about 100 miles away from the couple's Scottsdale, Arizona home. It's believed he chose this area because this is one of the areas he was most familiar with due to his hunting and camping history. It was found in the Tonto National Forest, which was close to the towns of Young, Arizona and Payson, Arizona. The family's dog Blue was found shivering and cowering underneath the truck.
Oh, poor thing.
They also found the hat that Robert had been wearing in the footage of him at the ATM the night of the murders. And they found a Bible in the back seat of the truck.
Mm.
This is also around the time that snow had started to fall pretty heavily in that area, so unfortunately, police were forced to call off the search for Robert shortly after it began due to weather hindrance. By July 2001, a warrant was issued for his arrest, and he was charged with 3 counts of murder and arson. On June 29, 2002, Robert was placed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list, and within a year, they had received hundreds of leads and tips, but none of them could be confirmed to be Robert.
Mm.
The police and FBI have never stopped following tips that they have received about possible sightings or potential locations of Robert, but they did remove him from the top 10 fugitive list on November 3rd, 2021. However, just because he's not on the top 10 anymore doesn't mean he's not still on the list. He is very much still considered a fugitive.
Right, okay.
There are many theories as to whether or not Robert is even still alive. See, the location the Forerunner was found was in a location that is riddled with cave systems. Like, literally tons of them. The police did at one point believe that Robert may have been hunkering down in one of the caves, and they did search some of them, but it would have been just virtually impossible for them to search every one of the caves. There was just too many. Some people think it's possible that he may have unalived himself in one of those caves, especially given his history of threatening to do so in his past, but police believe it's also very possible that he is still alive and has assumed a different identity and started a new life.
Those are 2 very good theories.
It's also thought possible he may have crossed the border. As I said before, he is considered a fugitive, and from my research, he is also considered dangerous. It's believed that Robert may be in possession of several different types of firearms wherever he is. You know, with his military background, he did have connections to Florida and Mexico.
Okay.
I think I say that again in just a minute, but in case I don't. This case did receive a lot of social media attention. It was even featured on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, as well as several documentaries that have been made surrounding the case. I will attach the age-progressed pictures of Robert to the show notes, as well as make the pictures for the cover photo for the case, those age-progressed pictures, like I said at the beginning. At the time he disappeared, he had a gold bicuspid tooth, a large scar on his lower back from his surgery. He has brown hair, blue eyes, stands around 6 feet tall. His last known weight was around 190 pounds. It's also noted that he may have a very distinct walk. Like he may have an exaggerated walk. And he may walk with his back erect and his chest out due to his back injury.
Okay.
As I said before, he is considered an avid outdoorsman, fisherman, and hunter, and because of his military days, as I said a second ago, he is thought to have connections in Florida and Mexico. And as far as I could find in my research, there is still a $100,000 reward for any information regarding his whereabouts.
Wow.
If you or anyone you know has any information regarding Robert or where he might be located, you are encouraged to contact your local FBI office or contact the nearest American embassy or consulate to you. I will also attach a link in the show notes to an anonymous tip line in Phoenix, Arizona that you can follow to report any information. And I will say something interesting here before I completely wrap up the case. But I came across, when I was researching, a thing from NamUs, or the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. They actually found a body December 12th, 2009 in Port Richey, Florida, which, if you remember, as I just said, Robert did have connections in Florida.
Yeah.
But once they put together a composite of what this person looked like, it was identical to Robert.
Oh, so he may not be on this earth anymore.
It's very possible that he may not, but I will say, though, there was some serious debate on whether or not this was him. Of course, like, I will say that for me personally, they did report the clothes that were found with the skeletal remains that they found. And one of the things that they found was a pair of size 8 shoes.
Okay.
So, to me personally, and again, they did not say if the shoes were actually on the person or would have been on the person or if they were just found near the person. So there's some debate about the shoes, because if he was 6 foot tall, the chances are he did not wear a size 8 shoe.
No.
But it's also possible that if he was, kind of living off the land and doing whatever he could to survive, it's also very possible that maybe he stole a pair of shoes from a campsite or something, because this area is located in a national park or by a national park.
Yeah.
So it is also very possible that he may have stolen these shoes and realized they were too small and thrown them or whatever. I don't know what he did with the shoes, but all I know is that it does not specify whether he was wearing them or not wearing them. If he was wearing them, then it's a pretty good possibility it was probably not Robert, because there ain't no way somebody who's 6 foot tall is going to get into an size 8 shoe. I wouldn't think, unless they have just abnormally small feet. Which if he had abnormally
toes.
Well, not only that, but if he had abnormally small feet, he wouldn't have been able to get into the military.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would assume he didn't, but I don't know. But I will attach that, and I will say that it really does look identical to Robert.
Okay.
So again, that's something people have kind of debated about on that one. I don't know if I think he's still alive or not. I think that I think it's very possible that he could be. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the person that they found in 2019 through NamUs or whatever, I'm going to say that probably was not Robert, because there was also several different reports throughout the years. I think one in 2012, one in 2016, one in 2017 of people who swore that they had either just personally engaged with Robert or seen Robert, or I think there was something out of Guatemala about a person had gotten into an argument with one of the military places there, or the police there, that was also identified to look exactly like Robert.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Now, on the body that they found, did you say it was skeletal?
Skeletal, yeah.
So how do they know that it looked exactly like...
They did a reconstruction of his face based off his bone structure.
Gotcha.
The link that I'm attaching for them, the NamUs thing, they actually show you how they came up with that, with the face that they constructed. They show you in steps how they composited that. Okay. That's pretty interesting, actually.
I've never actually seen them do it. I mean, I've heard that they could do that, and they do it really well, but I've never actually watched.
Right. Well, and they do it 2 ways too, because the skeletal remains were also found with a t-shirt and a hat and a belt. And so they do the sketch one way without the hat, and then they do it another way with the hat. And with the hat looks almost uncanny. You couldn't tell a difference with the hat. Okay. Without the hat, you could kind of see a little bit, maybe it's just somebody who looked really close to him.
Yeah.
But, I'm basing that on the fact that the last physical image that I seen of him in my research was him at the ATM.
Right.
With the hat on. So.
Gotcha.
But again, I don't know if I think he's still alive or he's not still alive, but I do think that it's very possible that he is still alive.
Yeah. I mean, it's very possible. I mean, like you said, with him being so skilled of, being outdoors and stuff, he might just be living off the land in a cave somewhere.
It's very possible.
So.
I don't know if I believe that, and I know this is going to sound like a terrible thing to say, but if somebody is so much of a coward that they would murder their family while they're sleeping, then I would think they're too much of a coward to actually go through with unaliving themselves. That's my opinion.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
He may have intended to do that afterwards. That may have been the plan.
Yeah.
But maybe when it came time to do it, he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yes. And then he, started living off the land or whatever. I don't know. That's my theory. That's my opinion. Don't come at me. I could be. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. You see my flowers? I'm so nice. Don't come at people with their flowers. I'm so nice. This is my opinion.
Yes, she is nice.
Thank you, Val. You didn't have to say that. That was so sweet.
Blinking twice. 3 times.
You can't tell.
Okay.
She wears a hat and glasses. You can't even see 70% of her face.
Hey.
Holy crap, you do have a forehead. Just wondering how you keep that hat up.
Look.
But back to seriousness, joking aside, if you have any information, please reach out and contact someone and report it if possible. But like I said, I really thought this case was important to rehash and bring back to people's attention and share again.
For sure.
Other than that, this is our first Arizona episode. Fallon will be coming at you next time with our second Arizona episode. And then you'll get to see me again for our third Arizona episode.
Yep.
So that's about it. If you like our content, you like what we're doing, please give us a subscribe and a like and share. Yeah, absolutely. If you have any comments or questions, or you just want to say hi, feel free to reach out on YouTube or email or any social media platform. We will respond every time, I promise.
The TikTok.
The TikTok. Yeah. Other than that, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today and spending your time with us.
Thank you very much.
And that's it, I think. We are Render the Darkness.